I'm in the midst of Zurich, Switzerland, and I'm surrounded by watches. Patek, AP, JLC, even the German brand Lange, they are all here, with the exception of the one brand we are going to talk about today.
It's all about Grand Seiko today and their most iconic watch in particular. Let's leave these other brands behind and walk down Switzerland's most famous shopping street, the Bahnhofstrasse, to take a look at our watch of choice near the Lake of Zurich. While we pass by Zurich's signature blue trams and find our way to the Bürkliplatz, let me thank a fellow watch enthusiast who was kind enough to lend me his watch for the sake of this video. Your time and trust is very much appreciated. Introduced in 2010, the Snowflake still has to be Grand Seiko's most popular offering. If you think about Porsche, you immediately think about the 911. Likewise, if you think about Grand Seiko, the Snowflake is, in all likelihood, the first watch that comes to mind. What your inner eye will zoom in on in particular is of course its standout dial. Often described as freshly fallen snow, it fits Switzerland's landscape quite wonderfully, even though the snow has already receded to the mountaintops in the background of this shot. Since the watch is all about that dial, let's linger on it for a moment. It features a discreet texture with its subtle contrasts barely announcing themselves. Thus, it may just look white from an arm's length away, but even from that distance it exerts a pull. It slowly but surely draws you in until you are absorbed by and helplessly lost in its details. We are worlds removed from the loud and garish watches of other brands. It's a beauty that whispers rather than shouts and is all the more effective for it. In line with its style design being reminiscent of snow, its weight, thanks to the titanium 5 construction, very much resembles that of a snowflake. While some people may object to the watch weighing almost nothing objectively and precisely nothing subjectively, one has to applaud the consistency in design. It weighing down on your wrist like a brick just wouldn't feel right for this watch. Just for fun, here it is compared to MySPJ 435, a limited edition for the Chinese market which shares its case proportions and the spring drive movement with the Snowflake. Despite these similarities, they feel and look distinctly different. The 435, due to its steel construction, provides much more heft on the wrists. Its style is arguably the more jaw-dropping of the two, displaying a starker contrast and a color that is sure to capture everybody's attention. Nevertheless, I think the Snowflake's design is altogether more consistent, with the sum of its components working together like the harmonious voices of a Bachian fugue. Inside the Snowflake spins rather than ticks the spring drive movement. The signature glide of the second hand adds to the serene and calming effect of the dial. You don't want to see a hand nervously stuttering away at 8 beats per second here. What's more, the spring drive is distinctly Grand Seiko, and so it makes sense to put it in their flagship product. Its proportions are rather pronounced for what I would call a sporty dress watch. With its 41mm, it spans my entire wrist, which, by the way, I insist, isn't small but fairly average for a European male. What's more, the Snowflake sits rather proud with a considerable height of 12.5 or so millimeters. Although manageable, I frankly wish it was quite a bit smaller. As you can see, even from a distance, the watch appears large. This, one could argue, is at odds with the otherwise so elegantly restrained design of the watch. And mind you, Grand Seiko wasn't forced to go for these case proportions. After all, there are spring drive movements in 39mm cases as well. So why they opted for these proportions is a bit of a mystery to me. But then again, the perfect watch has yet to be built. As we soar above the river Limmat, with my drone struggling to handle the extreme winds, let me come to a conclusion. In the couple of hours I had with this watch, thanks again to my friend for lending it to me, it has really won me over, so much so that I didn't even mention what I complained about in my last video, namely Grand Seiko Zaratsu polish being extremely scratch prone and thus a bit nerve-wracking to wear on a regular basis. In one word, the Snowflake was a joy to wear, and I would choose it over many, if not most, of the watches displayed in the boutiques here in Zurich.